He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
This is The Alex Marlow Show. Really happy you're here. We got a big week of news today, already piping hot, and we got a lot to get into. We got some breaking, perhaps, peace in the Middle East. We got a budget battles. We head towards a government shutdown. We got a new Super Bowl performer announcement. I got a lot of takes on that coming up. But I first want to tell you about something really important that my friend Dinesh just is up to. He's done it again. He's got a new eye-opening movie, The Dragon's Prophecy. It illuminates a 3,000-year-old mystery about Israel, the dark resurrection, and the end of days. The nation of Israel is a resurrected nation. But what if there is going to be a resurrection of another people, an enemy of Israel? After the horrific attack on October the 7th, The Dragon Prophecy offers new understanding on Israel, radical Islam, anti-Semitism, and biblical prophecy. Could it be that the fate of the world or of all of humanity itself is tied to what we're seeing in the Middle East? Based on the #1 international bestseller by Jonathan Cahn, The Dragon's Prophecy reveals how another realm could be transforming our world as we speak. Don't miss Dinesh D'Souza's new movie, The Dragon Prophecy. This is the key thing. 2 nights only in theaters, October 6th, October 8th. Then it'll go to streaming and DVDs, but I want to see us fill up the theaters. All tickets and pre-orders at thedragonsprophecyfilm.com, thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. Support Dinesh, and it's going to be great. Everything he does is great, and I saw a little taste of it and was very impressed. So I do think that we should be supportive, and I think you're going to learn a lot because he's very good in these topics. All right, I'll start with some breaking news, and I'll return to this later in the show. I'm going to call in Joel Pollak and give me his take on it. But the president, as I'm recording today, just got out of a press conference with Prime Minister Netanyahu. He's really trying to wind down this war. We saw him say on his way out to the golf course in Long Island for the Ryder Cup, I think it was on Friday, saying that I think we got a peace deal. We're going to be announcing a peace coming up. And that's not what it sounds like to me, but it sounds like there's a couple of paths, and I think there's a very clever chess move. Again, I'll keep my comments brief here because I'll return to this for a longer interview with Joel Pollak, who's our expert on this stuff, later in the show. But it sounds like there's 2 scenarios. There's an easy way and a hard way for Hamas to get out of this thing. And Israel is going to satisfy its war goals. I think President Trump is committed to seeing that through. And what he's provided for, from the details I'm able to glean, is that there is a path to Palestinian statehood, but Hamas would not be involved. And so then I don't know how that state would get formed, but I think that would involve a huge investment from the whole Arab world as well as the United States building up Gaza. I think Gaza Lago might be a fun way to call it. Maybe that's the new state, or maybe they would just call it Palestine. I don't know, but I don't know who would govern it overall. But Hamas would have to clear out of the way because of too many war crimes, too many atrocities. And so if Hamas agreed to that, then we could really be on the verge of some sort of great peace and that 2-state solution. But the problem for me is I don't actually think Hamas wants a 2-state solution. So if Hamas does not go with the deal, then Trump is it sounds like is going to let Israel just continue to destroy Hamas. No hostages will be freed, which is not good. And maybe there is still a Palestinian state in the end, but it wouldn't be until Hamas is leveled. And then again, we could maybe see that cool rebuilding process with Gaza Lago coming to be, which I say only partially tongue-in-cheek. It does seem like actually a pretty good idea in a lot of ways because it means beachfront. I mean, it could be a good something nice could become of that place. Of course, all of the religious significance of the Holy Land. But the Israel will be able to then continue, if Hamas does not work towards a peace, to take them out militarily without, I think, a slightly reduced pressure from the global media, which has been very negative on Israel. So, but that's the real key here. I think Trump is putting Hamas on a decision. Do you want to back off the war and pursue a 2-state peace? Or do you want to continue the war where you'll probably eventually lose, but maybe you can maintain some sort of a moral high ground? It's just going to be tougher now. And I think this is crucial because what I've said over and over again is that I don't believe Hamas actually wants a 2-state solution. I think they just want to see Israel destroyed. That's why you get the river to the sea chant. And I think a lot of people who spend a lot of time online, but only get one side of the issue, which is the pro-Palestine, quote unquote, side, I don't think they're aware of that Hamas, I don't think really wants statehood. So let's see if they prove me wrong, which I don't think they will. That's the first thing today in terms of a big news item. I'll mention briefly the horrific news over the weekend from the Michigan LDS, which is Mormon Church, attack, another Christian group attacked, building set ablaze, a man rammed into a wall, and he was shot dead by police. I think there were 4 fatalities as of the time. I'm broadcasting today, and it's a Mormon church, which is a Christian church. So the latest in a rash of attacks on Christians in Grand Blanc, Michigan. Prayers for that community. Definitely not the type of community you would ever expect something like this to come out of. AWR Hawkins breaks it all down for us on my Breitbart Confidential show, which is the show I do for our premium members there, if you want more details. But just there is I've been saying this over and over again, and I'm seeing people echo it, and it's probably not what I'm going to get credit for, but I think I was the first one talking about the demonic nature of some of these attacks on churches. I just feel Satan's presence a lot, and I think that he's targeting Christians. And the vessel that he used in this instance appears to be not a left-wing person. It seems like a person who's a veteran and clearly hated Mormons, obviously, but not necessarily someone who it seems like someone who is an anti-gay person. At least that's what the initial reports are online, and not the part of the Trantifa terrorism we've seen. But I'm saying that if you accept that there is demons trying to work on I would say the least strong among us mentally, the people who are the most troubled, the most weak, the most out of touch with God, then maybe this is the type of vessel he would use. So really upsetting and horrible, and just reminds you that there is a rash of homegrown terrorism in this country, and there's too many mass shootings, and we need to get back to church. We need to get back to godliness, and we need to protect ourselves using our Second Amendment rights and be smart so that these people do not have a lot of time to operate if they ever show up in our communities. So that's their horrible news, and more detail for you at Breitbart News. All right, other items that I feel like I want to put on your radar. We've still got some more fallout from the James Comey indictments, which is good. I'll get to that, but I think something that's really crucial here to point out is that Trump is not taking his foot off the accelerator. The Justice Department is now seeking information on Fani Willis, the Georgia DA who prosecuted Trump. Another highlight section of my New York Times bestselling book, Breaking the Law, is digging into this case. I would say, other than the E. Jean Carroll case, it is probably the most entertaining case to read about. The Jack Smith case does get pretty juicy at the end. The end of the Jack Smith case is pretty amazing when the Trump team cracks the code on how to beat Jack Smith. That's pretty good. That's some spy thriller stuff. But the Fani Willis case was so absurd, and the point that I highlight in breaking the law that I think is most significant is that she hired her boyfriend Nathan Wade, who was a family attorney. And Nathan Wade, who had no experience in RICO cases, and this was a RICO case, she was arguing that Trump had created a criminal conspiracy. And that criminal conspiracy was what he was going to use to rig the election. And so there's no reason to have a guy who does divorces and prenups to be on a case like this. And yet she did. And immediately Wade, her boyfriend, I think he was in a marriage. He got out of the marriage. And then he started showing up at the White House. He started showing up at the White House exactly after the Democrats lost the midterm elections. So they were going to lose their J6 committee, and so they need to keep the pressure on Trump and keep Trump as front and center in the news cycle, and not the horrible Biden economy, the Biden inflation, the immigration crisis, the crime that was rising, and the fact that Biden was, mentally incapacitated for the most part. They need to keep the focus on Trump as much as they could. And so at the same time, Fani Willis's trusted boyfriend, who has no business being on the case from a legal perspective, had 2 8-hour meetings at the White House. And this is about the same moment that you might recall Matthew Colangelo had put in his 2 weeks notice at the DOJ and then went to Alvin Bragg's court to try to bust Trump there for the try to seal the deal, which is a huge demotion, but trying to get the criminal conviction of Trump coming straight from Biden's DOJ, one of the top DOJ officials, one of the smartest lawyers in the lawfare apparatus, taking what would be a really menial job, relatively speaking, in order to bust Trump. And It just all working together. Oh, and Jack Smith's appointed at around the exact same time. So this is all designed to make Trump's life miserable. And so Nathan Wade, who had no business being on the case, was traveling around with Fonnie Willis and going to all sorts of different types of vacations on the government dole. And the government job that he shouldn't have had was bankrolling their trips together. And this is a great place to start the investigation. It is one of the top things I listed in places for that Trump ought to investigate. And I've done, there are teases of this at Breitbart.com if you insist on not buying the book, which you will enjoy. But I break down exactly what needs to be investigated there. And it is worthwhile. It's great news. And it shows you that we're not just going to stop with Comey. We're going to continue. All the bad guys are going to get held to account. And if Fonnie Willis and Nathan Wade are next, that makes perfect sense to me. When we do that stuff, we do get some pushback from the left. Here's Eric Swalwell. Swalwell has been threatening us, and he continues to do this. This is over the Comey indictments. But keep this in mind. Trump is keeping his foot on the gas. But check this out from Swalwell.
We are making it clear that we're going into the majority a year from now. We have every intention to do that, and so we will bring oversight, accountability. We will subpoena the Department of Justice, but also private actors who have done these drug deals with the administration, college campuses, entertainment companies, law firms. And so accountability is coming. And so, one, it's all coming out. Two, I hope that deters people from doing more of these deals, these one-offs with the president.
We're not just going to be subpoenaing government actors we don't like, but if we get the majority, we're going to subpoena private citizens too. And this is why I feel like my research is essential here for breaking the law. Is I point this out. They're not just coming after Trump. They're coming after you. He's just in their way. He's their biggest target. He's their whale. They're trying to make an example out of him. And that's why his whole demeanor, his whole attitude that he just persists and that he maintains a happy warrior status and he's living his best life. It's so essential because we have to deter them from doing this because they're emphatic about it. And that's why we need to keep trying to hold them to account, and that should include jail time. A lot of these people who have engaged in extra legal means, i.e. illegal means, to come after us, we need to hold them to their own standards and the standards of the law, most importantly. But they're threatening us. They're flat out threatening us. We're going to throw you all in jail if you're a pro-Trump person. That's what he's saying.
On Comey, Kate, this happened when Donald Trump was president. So if you're trying to tell me this is not politically motivated, the statement that they're referring to where he allegedly lied, so Donald Trump was president. So why didn't you indict him then?
All you need to know about where the left's mindset is at is their lawfare will not slow down. So we have to intensify ours. In terms of not lawfare, in terms of we're using the legal means to do warfare, we need to intensify our ability to uphold the law, restore law and order, and make sure that people aren't allowed to subvert the law in order to subvert our democracy, try to rig elections, as James Comey did, or try to just use the law to wield political power the way Chuck Schumer and Eric Swalwell and all the Democrats have done. So it's a point that it cannot be understated, and they will not stop if we stop. So our best bet is to continue to hold them to account, because that might make them think twice that if I pop my head up and I say I'm going to be the one who tries to put them in jail, then I'm going to put a big target on my back, figuratively speaking. All right, while I was listening to that clip, I got a Freedom Chat message, and it reminded me I got a Freedom Chat ad today. I love Freedom Chat. You guys know what I think of Freedom Chat. It's something I'm really excited about. It's more important today than ever. The concept of freedom itself, and especially with our online messaging apps. Next generation messaging app designed for people who still believe privacy and free speech matters. Team's got their alpha version. It's available today on both Android and iPhone. And I want you to take out your phone, download it right now, download your Freedom Chat right now. I'll tell you, I've got a personalized channel, and I know there's a bunch of you joining that. I'm going to be posting there more often. I'm going to add some administrators so that more people can post and keep the conversation going. And I think maybe one day when the show goes live, which I'm hoping that's going to be soon, hoping we'll be able to make an announcement on that front someday soon. Who knows? Stuff's complicated, but we're trying to. Then maybe that might be where we all hang out and chat during the show. That could be an option as well. So, but I believe in it because the alternatives for the encrypted messaging apps are they're run by the Silicon Valley elite. WhatsApp is a Facebook Meta property. We are making the bad guys rich by using their property, and they're selling our data. We know that. So this is the free app that does not spy on you, has your privacy first. End-to-end encryption, messages not stored on servers, even screenshots are blocked, which you got to try that. It's really fun. No tracking, no mining, no listening in, just private communication the way it should be. Go to the at Alex Marlow channel for exclusive content from me. I'm posting exclusive stuff there. So this is the app that reflects your values, owned by conservatives, keeps your conversations private. If you care about that stuff, and I do, freedomchat.com. Download it today. That's freedomchat.com, where freedom still means something. All right, we got our Super Bowl act. It's Bad Bunny. You guys know Bad Bunny, do you? I don't know. Does this audience know Bad Bunny? This is one where I'll introduce you to him if you're unfamiliar with some of the stuff he does. I saw this on Greg Price's X page, but we'll play this for you, get a taste.
I'm never performing in the U.S. again. I'm scared that ICE might raid the venue outside my show. And honestly, I can't risk the safety of my fans like that. Mainland America just doesn't feel necessary to me anymore. I've already performed there plenty of times. Fans in the U.S. have had lots of chances to see me live. That being said, I still care deeply about my Latino and Puerto Rican fans living in the States. Seeing me perform in Puerto Rico is always an option. That's why in my upcoming world tour, there are no stops in the continental U.S. This isn't about hate, it's about responsibility and respect. I want my Latino and Boricua fans to understand that you're always in my heart. You can come see me in Puerto Rico or catch me in one of the other countries I'm visiting.
So if you're just listening, then you're missing a lot of visuals, a lot of crazy costumes, a lot of vaguely homosexual imagery. I'll comment on that in a second, but his way over the top performance, and guy clearly has contempt for this country that's made him rich, but more on that. Let's let him finish.
But I can't, in good conscience, keep putting you at risk just to perform in the mainland U.S. I know for a lot of people, this feels like a sacrifice, but I want my stage to be a place of unity. My music is about love, about belonging. It's not supposed to be a reason to live in fear.
Yeah, so this is a guy, he hates ICE, doesn't want immigration and customs because he's pandering to a Latinx audience. So here's what's interesting about this. He's an extremely left-wing person. We've known this. We reported him quite a bit at Breitbart News, and it's never anything good. He does a lot of pandering to homosexuals, and does control a lot of our culture. Look, I always look at it, and this is one where the Media Matters source, Fun and Freaks can clip me out of context. But I grew up in Hollywood. I'm under the impression that teenage girls and homosexual men are the gatekeepers of the culture in a lot of ways. I don't say this as a judgment. I say it as that's the target audience. If you can get that audience fired up, those two audiences, then you're going to make some money. I think young men is probably a close third in there as well. But I really think those two. So he does do that. Like he did a gay kiss on stage. I don't think he's necessarily gay. I think he's just pandering to it, and he's a good businessman, a good performance artist. His music is incredibly popular, but here's a main observation about it. None of it's in English. He does not sing in the English language. He sings in Spanish. So it shows you what the NFL is up to. Obviously, this is a troll. He's a blatantly anti-ICE guy. This is clearly a sign to those of us who are just normal people who live in flyover country who love their football every Sunday and Monday night, and I guess Thursday night now, and probably some, that he's not for you. But that's the pattern. That's what they do. They put Kendrick Lamar out there last time. He doesn't say anything political unless it's on the left. That's what they do, and this is all. We've been here before. So my outrage level is not crazy high here because this is an essential point. Jay-Z's company, Rocka something or other, is really in charge of the Super Bowl in terms of the performance. Jack Posobiec tweeted this. Barack Obama's best friend, Jay-Z, runs the Super Bowl selection process through his company, Rock Nation, which is an exclusive contract with the NFL. I don't know if that's 100% literal. I didn't check, Jack, but I think that's roughly the concept of it. So Jay-Z's picking the act, so he's going to pick a left-wing guy. This guy is very close with Barack Obama. So they knew they were going to do this. And the NFL is very ambitious about their international plans. Like they really want to be an international brand, be an international sport. And they're trying to do more games overseas. So Bad Bunny is actually an American. He's from Puerto Rico, not mainland America, but I think technically that makes him an American, right? If I'm not mistaken. So, and he will be performing in the States. Obviously, the Super Bowl is in the States, so he keeps getting attention for himself. He's very good at getting attention. He's very popular. Does not speak in English. It is absolutely a troll to get all of you enraged. So don't get enraged because they do it every time. And so long as the NFL's got a deal, and remember, NFL is a woke corporation. They did all the Kaepernick stuff. They indulged all that, all the Black Lives Matter stuff on the field that they used to do. They're a woke corporation, and they only go where they think the most money is. So they do not care about you. The NFL does not care about your values. They do not care about this country. The NFL is here to make money, and this is what they think will make them the most money and expand the brand the most. And if it annoys some of you in my audience, then all the better for them. That's what they want. So don't buy into it. He's a popular guy, and I don't know, maybe it'll be a good show. He's a good performance artist. So don't stress yourself out because we've been here before. Please point out that he's a left-wing guy, please. But let's play it a little cool here because he's very popular, and they were always going to do this stuff. They're always going to go for left-wing entertainment whenever they possibly can. So I think that's really, really worthwhile to note. All right. I got a couple of interviews today that I want to share with you. Oh, before I do that, this is important. Okay, let me get you a quick update on, we were headed towards a government shutdown, and the Democrats really hate government shutdowns. We know this, right? We know this because we've got videos like this one.
It is not normal to shut down the government when we don't get what we want.
If the government shuts down, it will be average Americans who suffer most.
Shutdowns are not good for the economy.
The truth is that shutting down the government is a serious and dangerous action that we must do everything possible to prevent.
Families will be hurt. Farmers will be hurt. Everyday Americans whose lives were turned upside down by extreme weather events like hurricanes and floods and wildfires will be hurt.
There are real consequences when the government shuts down. It harms our national security, it harms our economy, and it harms service members, veterans, retirees.
Okay, so the Democrats are trying to frame this as the Republicans are trying to withhold health care from people. But the problem is that this is a clean CR, which means it's the exact same funding for 7 weeks, which is very clever that the Republicans have done this. I think it's clever out of necessity because they couldn't get their act together to get appropriations bills together as they're supposed to, as I've been calling for as long as I've had a microphone. But they always let us down that regard. But they did something clever here is by offering up a 7-week extension, the Democrats are now clearly the ones who are making demands. They actually want more stuff in it, and the Republicans are saying we're just going to continue. We're going to continue spending as is. Republicans are totally unified in this, and some Democrat defectors are already apparent. So the Democrats are, some of them who are clearly not in hard left areas want this CR to go through. So it's a bipartisan bill on the Republican side. So it really is the Democrats who will be shutting it down. And they insist on all sorts of stuff that is just not palatable to most of the country. So there's a big meeting today, and I'll have some detail for you at Breitbart.com later in the day and on tomorrow's show, I'm sure. But Trump meeting with Hakeem Jeffries, John Thune, Mike Johnson, Chuck Schumer, try to work stuff out. That sounds really painful. It doesn't sound like a fun day, but hey, that's the job. Trump's got to do it. But the Democrats would like to try to get Trump to make some sort of a mistake and try to appeal to Trump's ability to get a deal done, because Trump does like getting deals done. But I don't know how much is going to come out of it. All right, so Trump says the Democrats, this is a quote, want over $1 trillion in new spending to continue free health care for illegal aliens, a monumental cost, force taxpayers to fund transgender surgery for minors, have dead people on the Medicaid rolls, allow illegal alien criminals to steal billions of dollars in American taxpayer benefits, try to force our country to again open our borders to criminals and to the world, allow men to play in women's sports, and essentially created transgender operations for everybody. Fetterman's the only Democrat who voted for the CR last week, but he is, makes it bipartisan. Democrats always pulled that trick on us. So the Paul and Murkowski also oppose the deal. So we'll see where this goes here. But as always, if the media makes a difference, there's always a chance the Democrats can win the messaging war. But it just feels like more than ever, the media means less. And the Democrats want to fund absurd stuff. We have a big deficit, a big debt, And I think it's a kind of clever maneuver that's saying we're doing the clean CR, just keep the funding where it is. And it's the Democrats who are actually asking for more stuff. But so it's always painful. The budgeting process is always painful. It's why we got to win every single election, because every seat we have makes it so it's easier to get deals done that are favorable. So we lost a bunch of close Senate races, I know, last time around. And it's just a reminder, we got to keep stuff focused. But we are headed towards a Democrat-induced shutdown because they want too many freebies that are absurd. Okay, we're going to do a couple of interviews here. The first one is with Tom Simon of Home Title Lock, and he is a really sharp guy, FBI background, law enforcement. And we're talking to him about a lot of the fraud that's taking place, particularly white-collar fraud, and some really simple ways that you could protect yourself and at the same time supporting the show and supporting good people who sponsor the show, but doing something really smart to make sure that you save yourself some big headaches when it comes to white-collar crime. And this stuff is legit. It affects, we all have someone in our life that's been affected by something like this. But you're going to hear the importance of Home Title Lock, new sponsor of the program, from FBI Special Agent Tom Simon, who is, I just taped this interview, he's a super sharp guy. And you're going to learn a lot about how crime is being committed and really easy stuff you can do. And then we're going to bring in Joel Pollak, who's going to give us a breakdown on the path to peace in the Middle East. So let's hear both of those right now. All right, one thing I want to keep you appraised of on the show is things that are actual threats to you, things where we get all fixated on all sorts of things that might not end up coming for us or our community. Well, one thing that we're seeing a lot of is a lot of white-collar crime, and we're seeing a lot of theft, people who are stealing people's property. And that's why I brought in as a sponsor Home Title Lock, which is a really important product that is going to protect the most important asset most of you got, which is your home. So it feels like an important conversation to have to introduce you to the concept of why I think this matters. With me today is Tom Simon, who's a former FBI special agent, 26 years of experience investigating white-collar crime, counterterrorism, national security matters. He's a real pro in this regard, and he's going to walk us through the risks and what we can do to fix it. Tom, give us a little bit more on your background and why you think this is really essential for my audience.
Well, as you indicated, I was an FBI special agent for 26 years, investigating mostly financial crimes. I'm basically an accountant with a gun. And what we're seeing a lot of these days is criminals filing fraudulent deeds to transfer ownership of your home to themselves or someone else. And then what do? They go out and either sell that house out from under you, but more likely they go out and get a loan using your home as collateral. That's right. But this is a loan that they'll never pay back, and you won't even know this occurred, Alex, until the foreclosure notices start arriving at your house months later.
Yeah, and this is the thing. It's not that they're going to just sell the house from under you. Is they're going to use your name to steal money from someone else, and then eventually it's going to become your problem. So let's talk about how we let's get into the mechanics. Walk us through step by step what they do, what the thieves could do to get a hold of your title and then sell it or get a loan off of it.
Sure. What they do is they use something called a deed, and a deed is a document that transfers ownership in the eyes of the county government. Now, what people don't understand is that the county clerk is not verifying the authenticity of these deeds that come in the door to their office. By statute, their only job is to record them in the public record. And that's the weak link in the chain, and how they can do this because no one's watching the store, Alex.
Okay, so talk to me about why the government can't stop it. How come the legal system just doesn't protect us from this adequately?
The problem is that there's no one statute in the federal code that applies to home title theft. And so when I was an FBI agent, we would try to kind of squeeze this round peg into the square hole of wire fraud, mail fraud, bank fraud, or money laundering. And so that doesn't always capture it. So what we're trying to do is promote the idea that people have the tools that they can defend themselves from this crime.
So these tools that we need to have, they're filling in the gaps that I guess the legal system is not covering, or I mean, maybe we'll play catch up. The whole point is, it seems like a giant headache that even if you can get yourself whole, that you don't want to have this headache. That to me feels like the most fundamental part of all this.
That's the problem, is that law enforcement may actually go forward, catch the bad guys, and prosecute them. But law enforcement doesn't have the ability to restore that home back into your name. And a victim is going to spend a fortune on attorneys making that happen.
Yeah, that's right. So it's either pay a little bit now or you're going to end up paying a lot later. Give me an example of where these people are. Where are they? Where are the people who are trying to commit this sort of fraud?
Well, this is a homegrown problem. We recently had a case in Detroit where a woman who was running a charity, which was ostensibly trying to help elderly people who had fallen behind on their property taxes, to remedy that. But what she did was she filed fraudulent deeds into the names of into fake names and then stole the homes of like 30 people. We also had a case in Chicago where a county clerk was taking bribes of just $200 a piece to file fraudulent deeds so they could steal the home title. This is a homegrown problem.
So people are willing to that's unbelievable. It makes sense. You see this stuff in LA. There's people who will smash into your car to get recycling, like so they can make a few cents. The criminals are really that gnarly at this point in time. It's just important to you can't take anything for granted at this moment. So I want to talk about your experience with embezzlement, real estate scams. Walk us through how criminals are able to pull this off exactly without ever even stepping foot inside of your home.
Right. Well, again, they're filing these fraudulent deeds, and it's so easy to do that now in the world of AI, creating fake documents or just Photoshop or anything like that. So you don't even need to actually go to a notary, or you don't even need to set foot often in the county clerk's office. The criminals can do this from the comfort of their home and end up with the title to your house in their name or the name of like a straw buyer. And then they go out and get loans on it.
So I feel like there's some people in the audience who are probably thinking, well, I'm on top of stuff. Maybe I won't get caught up in this. Is there anyone who's safe here, and who are the most targeted groups?
Obviously, the senior citizens or people who have, vulnerabilities would probably be the most vulnerable. But I would argue that anyone who has equity in their home is a potential victim in this thing. As you pointed out in your introduction, for most people, the equity in your home is your single largest asset. And I think it makes sense to keep an eye on the status of your home title to make sure no one's messing with it.
Yeah. So let's talk about how to keep an eye on it. How do you keep an eye on it? And this is what Home Title Lock offers. Yeah. How do you keep an eye on it? How do we monitor where we're at? And we get alerts, I would assume, is what's going to happen if there's any sort of activity. But how do we keep track of the activity? It sounds tough to do.
You're going to drive yourself crazy, Alex, trying to monitor the status of your home title 24/7. It's almost impossible to do. I just can't even fathom the burden. So that's why I like a company like Home Title Lock, because what they have is what they call triple lock protection. The first is monitoring. They're going to monitor electronically the status of your home title. The second piece is notification. If anything happens to the status of your home title, whether that's a lien or the filing of a deed, you're going to be notified immediately. And if God forbid the bad guys should actually be able to transfer ownership of your home before you can take action, they have a restoration team of attorneys, and they're going to spend up to $1 million undoing what the bad guy has done and getting that home back into your name.
Right there, that's huge, because that's a huge amount of insurance. Because
I like to think of it as insurance, but it's insurance in the same sense that I keep a smoke detectors in my house. I may not use them. I hope my house never catches on fire, but I sleep better at night knowing that my home is protected from that possible tragedy.
You know what? I try to get insurance on my books in case I get sued for something in the book. And I know everything is going to be clean as a whistle. I know I'm going to win. I just don't want to have to deal with the lawyers and the headaches and have to go, crowdsource a bunch of funding so I could make myself whole again. Like, no, you want to be prepared for the worst case scenario. That's what we're doing here. And it feels like this is the correct approach to take. So they're monitoring, they've got the legal team. And then what's the other part of the triple lock protection?
Well, the notification, the idea that if something should happen, you immediately get alerts via text message, email, whatever medium you choose.
Okay, so you get like a text or an email, and it'll tell you, hey, there's a problem here. You got to look into it. So then what do we do? Now we got the information. There's some suspicious activity. What's the next step?
Home Title Lock then steps in your shoes and tries to remedy this thing, figuring out what exactly went on. Perhaps it was a mechanic's lien that got placed on your home because you had a dispute with a mechanic or something legitimate like that. That's fine. You should be able to respond to that. Okay, no, I'm going to fight with my mechanic or a contractor on the house. But quite often, these things are bad guys who are testing the waters. When I was working as an FBI special agent, we had some bad guys out there who were just going out to harass police officers, judges, and prosecutors by just placing liens on their homes. And those law enforcement people and judges spent a fortune trying to unwind this. I bet they wish they had Home Title Lock.
Yeah, that's exactly where I wanted to ask next is, what does it look like if you're a victim here? You finally realize your home has been stolen on paper. You're still living there, but now someone else has got the title on it. Walk us through the nightmare after that.
Well, I mean, the stress alone is insane, right? I've spoken to a lot of people who've had their homes stolen, mostly in Hawaii, where I was an agent for 7 years, and it's devastating to them, right? They've worked hard to pay their mortgage every month and build some equity in their house, and then they find out that some jerk out there is trying to steal that equity from them. Emotionally, it's devastating. That's not even counting the legal fees that are awaiting them unless they have a service like Home Title Lock.
You know, this is supposed to be Hawaiian Shirt Friday, Tom. I don't know if you know this about the show. I do Hawaiian Shirt Friday. I'm wearing a jacket and a nice crisp white shirt specifically because we had this interview and I wanted to look like a pro today. So if I know you're Hawaii
agreement for next time, because I dressed like a professional for you today. So.
Yeah, there's a huge mistake. We could have both been wearing Hawaiian shirts, and that would have really got people's attention. Yeah. So it's this seems like the type of fraud that could continue so long as we incompetent people leading county government. And that's what concerns me is I found a nice neighborhood, but I'm in California. I live at the edge of LA County. I don't trust anyone there. And so the county recorder is supposed to record the documents. Even if they know it's fake, they still have to record it. Is that true? Is that the system we live in?
There are some states out there that are getting proactive about this. I believe Texas has a pending bill there that Home Title Lock is in favor of, the idea that they're going to be doing a little more underwriting and to test the legitimacy of these things. But the training's not there. I don't want to disrespect county clerk workers or county workers in general. They're probably working very hard for their salary, but they're just not trained in fraud avoidance. They know they're very good at recording the deeds. I don't want to outsource the safety of my home and the equity in my home to a county employee. Again, no offense to them.
Right. Okay. So then Home Title Law comes in, and so they'll monitor if there's any sort of activity. But how do they know if there's any activity on the title?
Well, they're literally electronically monitoring it. We finally moved into the computer age where all deeds are recorded in databases that are available to Home Title Lock in all 50 states. And then if there's any change to the status of that home title, meaning a deed gets filed or a lien gets placed, Home Title Lock learns of this and immediately notifies the subscriber.
All right. So HometitleLock.com is where you go, and you get we got a promo code. It's for Marlow. The promo code is Marlow, MARLOW at HometitleLock.com. You get a free title history report and a free trial. I mean, that's a dang good deal. So you get the free trial and you get a free title history report. And this seems like such an easy buy for me. Totally protects you on something that is popping up. This thing is really, it's a big risk, and I just don't trust the government to start putting the safeguards in place fast enough. That's kind of where I'm at with this, Tom.
Yeah, again, this is the fire extinguisher under the sink in your kitchen.
Yeah. Okay. So now I get to selfishly ask you, you're an agent in Hawaii. What kind of crime are you dealing with there on a regular basis?
I was a fraud guy, right? And so the people of Hawaii are lovely people, but they're maybe a little too trusting. And so I did a lot of embezzlements, a lot of Ponzi schemes, and a lot of mortgage fraud cases.
So give me some common mortgage fraud cases that you think people need to be aware of. Well, what are the go-tos for the thieves these days?
Well, again, I think the creation of false documents to get loans, again, it's equity theft, and not beyond just what we were talking about here. The idea that someone out there can basically lie to get a mortgage and put someone into a house. That's stuff we saw in 2009, 2010. That hasn't stopped. It's still happening out there. They're getting straw borrowers to get mortgages that they don't deserve. The banks are still happy to loan money to people who maybe don't deserve it, and that creates risks out there.
Yeah, this is where it feels like most of the clever criminals now it's just an online endeavor. What are other crime trends that you're seeing right now?
I'm seeing a lot of cryptocurrency scams out there right now.
Yeah.
As a private investigator who investigates financial crimes for a living, I feel like I get a dozen calls a week from people who had a impossibly beautiful Asian woman contact them with a wrong number on WhatsApp. And next thing you know, they're liquidating their life savings to put it into a crypto scheme. We're still seeing the home title thefts that we talked about earlier. And Ponzi schemes, the promise of high rates of return coupled with low risk, that seems to never stop.
Yeah, that never stops. And so what are the one thing I was thinking of in the context of Home Title Lock, it feels like something that I bet there's someone in your family who could really benefit from this, and not just you yourself, but it just seems like someone who's not going to be on top of these things. Maybe it's someone who's lived in the same house for a long time, and maybe there's a lot of equity in the house, and is just not going to be dialed in. I mean, is that something that you would recommend that people reach out to friends and neighbors about this thing?
Without question. And moreover, what often happens in these cases is that the bad guy is not some stranger that pulled your name out of a hat. The call is coming from inside your house, Alex, like they say in that old horror movie. So it's usually that crappy cousin of yours who knows that grandma has Alzheimer's, and he's going to begin messing with the title to her house by filing deeds. And so something like this to monitor a senior citizen in your life's home feels essential to me.
Very good. All right, Tom Simon, it is nice to get all this information. And again, the call to action, guys, HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Marlow, and you're going to get a free title history report and a free trial of the $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts if there are any changes, and if the fraud occurs, you're back with that $1 million to fix it, which is pretty great. So great sponsors, good people, smart people. Obviously, Tom, nice work. Appreciate you. And that's it.
Thanks for having me on, Alex. Thank you.
All right. I mentioned earlier I was going to bring in Joel Pollak, senior editor at large for us at Breitbart News. He's also authored many books, including The Zionist Conspiracy Wants You. He hosts a great radio show, Breitbart News Sunday, on SiriusXM, the Patriot Channel, Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. And Joel, this is normally one where I would call and I would get a cheat sheet from you about what went on with the Netanyahu and Trump press conference just now that just took place. But instead, I'm calling you in to give me the goods. I suggested basically it seems like Trump is doing some sort of a chess move where he's putting Hamas on a decision. Do they want to try to move towards a peace and an eventual Palestinian state, or do they want to continue with the war and kind of putting it to them? It feels like that's what they're doing in a nutshell, but give us the details and the strategy.
Well, Trump said that this was a deal if Hamas accepts it. So it's basically an offer. And it's an offer that has something in it for Palestinians, and it has a lot in it for Israelis. What it offers Israelis is the achievement of their major war goals. So Israel would get all of its hostages back, it would get Hamas out of power, and it would force Hamas to disarm. Hamas would be able to leave Gaza or live there with amnesty if they committed to complete disarmament. And the Palestinians in general would get to a path toward a Palestinian state if they agree to the deal and also agree to reform the Palestinian Authority and work with the regional Arab partners that are also in on the deal as partners in redeveloping Gaza. So there's something in this for everybody, and you can look at this deal and understand that the Israelis got everything they wanted. The price for that was a formal apology to the Prime Minister of Qatar for the...
I was about to ask about this. So yeah. I just read a report that Netanyahu called Qatar and apologized in front of Trump. What was that about?
Well, it's about two things, one minor and one major. The minor thing is the spectacle of forcing Israel to apologize for what, in my view, and actually in terms of international law, Israel was entirely entitled to do, which is to attack terrorists that Qatar was harboring.
Yeah.
But the Arab world was very upset about it. Plus, the United States has an air base in Qatar. So It was important for Trump to make clear that this wasn't going to happen again, and that the Israelis were out of line, and that he was able to control Israel in this way. So in a way, it's a bit of kabuki theater where the Israelis agree to this form of ritual humiliation and the Arab world feels pacified by this, and things can continue, and hopefully relationships can be rebuilt between Israel and some of the Gulf states to the extent that they had frayed a little bit because of this. That's the minor point. The major point is that in return for apologizing for what most Israelis don't feel they have to apologize for, Israel obtained terms in the Gaza deal that are very favorable. As I mentioned before, all of its war goals are achieved. There are some things in there that Israelis might not be thrilled about. Many Israelis will not like even the idea of a Palestinian state being mentioned as a possibility. But it is interesting, and I think very important, that Trump included it as the reward for complying with the rest of the process, not something that the Palestinians get up front. The mistake that the United Kingdom, France, Canada, Australia have made is that they've recognized a Palestinian state when none exists and when there's still a war going on, when Palestinian terrorists are holding Israeli hostages. And as both Israel and Trump rightly said, that rewards Hamas for taking the hostages because they can say, look, we murdered all these people, we took the hostages, and we got international recognition, so why not do it again?
That was a lesson of Reagan's amnesty, right? If he'd put up a wall first and then did the amnesty,
right.
I don't think we'd be talking about it, but we're talking about it because he gave the amnesty and the wall never got built.
Right. The other thing this deal does is it basically says to Hamas that you can choose now between statehood and war. And one way or another, Israel is going to get what it wants, which is peace and security. You're not going to be able to get rid of Israel. And we're going to work with these other Arab countries in developing Gaza, whether you like it or not. Now, if you agree, then you will speed along the achievement of a Palestinian state, and you can probably live your lives out quietly, whether in Gaza or in some other country of your choosing where you might be safe, let's say Saudi Arabia or Qatar or something like that. But if you disagree and you keep rejecting the deal, as it appears Hamas is about to do, because they've said they will never disarm,
right,
then we're just going to let Israel come after you and continue destroying you. That's not explicit in the text of the deal, but it was said.
Yeah, but it's clear that you can keep going along with war. So here's my point. Here's the main point here is that this is where I feel like this is a checkmate here, because I don't think Hamas wants statehood. I don't think they like that. I think they like when it's a war-torn area. I don't think they're actually looking for peace. I think their only goal is the destruction of Israel. So, but I feel like a lot of the world doesn't know that, and hopefully that was the end result of this. It always ends up, everyone always blames Israel for everything, but so it feels like the best case scenario here is not, I mean, it's a peace, of course, but I would be shocked if Hamas actually operates peacefully. Feels like where we could be going is that Hamas comes up with some excuse to not have a peace, and then maybe more of the world wakes up to that fact.
Right. I think you're correct that this has very strong persuasive force. And what it does is it basically says, look, the war is continuing, but it's only continuing because Hamas decided they didn't care about a state. They would rather keep the hostages and keep fighting and keep their weapons than have a state. And the demands that people are making in this deal for Hamas to comply with to get to a state are reasonable. You can't have a million different militias running around if you want a state. You have to disarm. You have to agree to the decommissioning of arms, which is a phrase that came from the Northern Ireland peace process. So these are reasonable demands, and Hamas refuses to accept them. So Israel is justified in continuing the war. So in that sense, it actually reduces some of the pressure on Israel, and it unites the Arab world to the extent that they're part of this deal. It unites the Arab world behind Israel in continuing to fight Hamas. Now, it doesn't actually say that explicitly, but since it does say that the Arab world is on board with all of the other post-war plans in the agreement, and the text of the agreement doesn't require Israel to end the war or put a Palestinian state first or anything like that, it basically means that the rest of the Middle East is now joined with Israel in demanding that Hamas accept the terms of the deal, that they choose statehood, and that if they don't, Israel can continue to fight. The other thing it does, and this is really important to understanding how this gets sold to the Israeli public, is it allows Netanyahu to go home and say, I got a deal on the table that releases all the hostages. This is a deal to release all the hostages. I did the very best I possibly could. I agreed to end the war within 72 hours if they agree to release all the hostages. There it is. He knows that Hamas is very unlikely to accept these terms. And so it allows him political cover, really, to continue the war. He believes, I think, that the only way to guarantee Israel's security is to get rid of Hamas entirely. This deal allows him to say he did the very best he could to achieve some kind of agreement that would stop the war as long as the hostages were released, and that Hamas still rejected it, and therefore that's why the war has to continue. Not because he turned something down, but because he put something reasonable on the table and they just walked away from it.
So, okay, so we got a couple of scenarios here, and let's game them out. So first of all, Hamas agrees to a deal. So what does that mean they're agreeing to? Obviously, the hostages have got to return, the fighting will stop, and the Arab world and the United States, I imagine, will be a part of this, will come together and start building up Gaza Lago or whatever it's going to be. But then what's Hamas's role? Who governs Gaza Lago?
Right. So Hamas is excluded from government under this deal. And
so why would they go along with the deal then?
Because otherwise they die. So that's essentially what happens. I mean, as Netanyahu said in the press conference, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. You can agree to this, and then you get to live in, Riyadh for the rest of your life or something. Or you can fail to agree, and then we're just going to fight you and get what we want anyway, and you're going to die.
Okay, great. Okay, so the hard way, the way that I predicted this will go, but I would love to be wrong, which is that there's no deal and the fighting continues. What does that look like?
So Israel has been going through Gaza City methodically, block by block, and taking out booby traps, taking out buildings, tunnels, and slowly reducing the area in which Hamas can operate. And I think we're within weeks of a point where Israel will basically win the war militarily, that Hamas will cease to exist as a force in Gaza City. Unfortunately, that could also mean many of the hostages will die, but there's some possibility some of the hostages will be rescued or they'll escape. And then the rest of the war will just be a mopping up operation as Israel faces a counterinsurgency, or an insurgency rather, of guerrillas, much like post-war Iraq, although Gaza is a much smaller area and Israel will be able to control that a lot better and with fewer resources than were required to restore the peace in Iraq. So I think that that's the future, and then you'll have this multinational Arab force come in, and Israel will slowly hand authority back to them. One crucial point that Netanyahu emphasized in the press conference was that Israel will retain a security perimeter along the border in Gaza. That means basically a strip of territory inside Gaza that'll act as a buffer zone so that they never get surprised like they were on October 7th ever again, that there's going to be basically a kilometer-wide no man's land where they'll be able to spot Hamas trying to mobilize to come across the border if they ever try it again.
All right. So how are you feeling now, Joel, as someone who's interested in peace and Israel succeeding in vanquishing Hamas? Where are you now versus where you were an hour ago?
I was very curious about what they were going to come up with. When I saw that Netanyahu had apologized to Qatar, I thought that was bad, but I withheld judgment because I knew he probably was getting something good in return for that.
Yeah, you got to be out of the deal, right?
Yeah. And look, I think this is a flashback to early 2020 when Trump invited Netanyahu and some of the Arab representatives to the White House. And in the East Room, they presented the Trump peace plan. And they offered $50 billion to the Palestinians if they would agree to peace. And the Palestinians rejected it. That wasn't Hamas, by the way. That was the Palestinian Authority, the supposedly moderate Palestinians. That set the stage for the Abraham Accords, because what happened then was, once the Arab world saw that the Palestinians weren't going along with it, were going to be an obstacle, they just decided, forget about it, let's just make a side deal with Israel. And that's how the Abraham Accords came about. So this has the same feeling as that, where Trump is basically saying, here's a deal, the Palestinians can decide whether to be part of it or not. Either way, we're moving ahead. The region is not going to give them a veto. And, oh, by the way, if you do say no to this deal, Hamas is going to get wiped out in Gaza anyway. And the rest of the region is going to cooperate on rebuilding Gaza. We're going to give the Arab world, not Israel, governing authority in Gaza. It's not going to be annexed by Israel. It's not going to be occupied by Israel. It's going to be an Arab-run area that is going to feature a kind of Dubai-like economic development run by the people who built Dubai, who built Doha, who built these other capitals across the Arab world, and under American supervision. Trump is going to chair the peace board, as it's called, that's going to oversee this entire process. So I think it's a rather elegant plan. And I think Hamas is going to reject it, and I think the war will continue. Hamas will be wiped out. I don't know what will happen to the hostages, but I think in the long run, this is actually a good plan. And in the short term, it actually strengthens Israel by giving greater legitimacy to its military operation in Gaza. All
right. And then we'll keep track. We should set the betting odds for when we think Israel will start getting blamed for something not going according to plan, because it happens very fast.
It's happened already.
Very good. Joel Pollak, very thank you for jumping in quickly, because I want to get your immediate feedback on this potentially historic moment, and maybe it amounts to not a lot aside from clarity in the region, but clarity is good. We like clarity. All right. The Zionist Conspiracy Wants You is Joel's latest book. He's also got many other great books. Breitbart News for all of his writing, and Breitbart News every Sunday on Patriot Channel, Sirius XM. All right. That's today's show. Thanks to Misty. Thanks to all of you in the audience. Thanks to John Cassio for pulling clips. See you tomorrow.